long in the opposition?
Who said so? He hasn't said so.
Can you say that?
No, we can't say that because he hasn't declared that he's no longer in a position. He hasn't declared himself as much as in handshake with the president. For me, I've not heard him say that he's no longer in opposition. But either he's in opposition or he's in the government. The narrative that he had started, the questions that he was asking that were hard questions and critical questions that he needed to ask on behalf of Kenyans, I think he should not swallow his words. Because if he's taking the president now to go and borrow more, where does this one leave Kenyans? I have a problem with that.
Where does it leave Kenyans? And even as you talk about the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, you've talked about questioning, every move that is being played on behalf of the Kenyans. Yes. Does he have that mandate now that you have the handshake there?
In 1996,
unless it was a gag.
In 1996, a relative I know married, went and picked a loan from a bank. He came and spent the money, and the wife was very disgruntled, and she kept on making noise. So the next time he told the wife, let's go, we borrow together, and let's use it together. Then, from then, the wife, as much as no value was received in what they borrowed together, the wife kept quiet. Back to the topic for the day. Back to the topic. I mean, that's a story. That's a story from which I know of a family issue from my village.
Relating to this?
No, it's not. It's not related. It's just a story. It's just I decided to entertain you guys with a story. It's a beautiful Easter. So back is that Raila Odinga, the Right Honorable, has a responsibility as a leader, and I know he has a following from his people, and by him having handshake with the president, from my opinion, it does not mean that then the role he actively had in politics needs to be dissolved. I feel that he still needs to maintain that position.
As the opposition?
He's the opposition leader. I don't think he has received an appointment to the government, but the dilly-dalliance with the presidency and the government is what worries most of his supporters, including Ram here, in that they expect a lot from him, and previously he has shown a good track record in keeping the government of the day in check. So when he dallies this and you see banners of him in Kisumu saying, I have registered for Huduma number, have you? And then considering that all these are issues that he is expected to speak on behalf of the common mwananchi, is what worries his followers. But still, as it may be, he's still in the opposition. He still is the opposition leader. I don't think that the position of the AU High Representative on infrastructure is swapped with the opposition leader.
It's not swapped.
It's not swapped.
And don't you think that at any point when it comes to the comment that she had given earlier on about who is to put the government in check?
My friend here put it very correctly that we are living in very confused times. We are having parliamentary committees which are weak, or rather which they don't care. We are living in times where the leaders who were in the opposition then, right now they don't bother. Nobody is putting the government in question.
But there are some who have declared themselves the opposition.
Who?
Third Way Alliance Party, for example.
Sometimes let's be serious, Ram. When you're talking about serious things,
I think the duty of opposition leaders are not self-declared. There's a very systematic way upon which we get the opposition leaders. Is that the runners-up after the election definitely assumes the position of. I don't want some jokers to put it on social media that now they assume the position of the opposition leader. I think
opposition.
Yes, I think it's a joke in itself as those who declare. But now, coming back to what you've asked and what my colleagues has also deliberated on, I think we are in a very tough times as a country. Because, the value of 368 billion shillings, if you think about this, and if you think about the replication of that in years to come, if that money is not properly invested, and it goes down drain in form of corruption, or in form of mismanagement and misappropriation, then Kenyans again, like we are also projecting that once you give birth to a child, the child is already, you know, indebted. So I wonder how long are we piling up on the loans of those we haven't, you know, brought forth into this world. But very interesting question. Where is the rest of the government? Ministers, principal secretaries? I hope they are part of the delegation, because then it means that it is easier to hold the ministries or the allied ministries accountable than to hold the opposition leader accountable.
Now, yesterday,
for borrowing.
Yesterday, I was checking the things that were taking trends on Twitter, and one issue was Raila Odinga, the Right Honorable. People were talking about this issue concerning his travel, and I would like to just sample some of the things that they said concerning the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And one person tweeted, and by the way, this new, and she quoted, role. This new role makes Raila part and parcel of the Jubilee government. So spare me the issue of how people should criticize Jubilee but not Raila. They are all part of the same system. Kenyans need to grasp the meaning of systemic. All right? And one more tweet. Raila is in AU infrastructure team, so it is reasonable for him to be involved in SGR things. Guys, at least we have two heads going to bargain for better terms, right? Do you agree with that?
Now,
and I'm seeing Araba laughing there.
talking about the tweets and the social media as a whole, I saw somewhere where someone had said that Honorable Raila Odinga has become the flower boy of Jubilee. And it startled me, and I'm thinking, why did that person, think that way about him? And I was thinking is because Kenyans actually on social media, on Twitter more particularly, they are not excited about the whole thing. And so for someone to say that because Raila is in AU and he's in charge of the infrastructure and all that, I mean, there's no relationship. I think Kenyans, we should, learn how to separate issues.
No, there's no relationship between what and what?
There's no relationship between him being in the AU infrastructure matters and the SGR in Kenya, honestly speaking.
But he's going there.
He is, yes, he is going.
He's
traveling to China for that purpose. But I'm still saying, for me, I will still insist that it is important. And I started by saying, the SGR is not the problem. I think all of us, we are as panelists here, we are agreeing that it is for a good reason for this country to have that kind of infrastructure, making it easy.
But that is your opinion. Do you agree?
We agreed,
do you agree?
Yes, I listened to them. We agreeing that it is a good thing. But what we are questioning, or what I'm questioning right now, is the issue that there's no one actually who is going to ask those critical questions for Kenyans, who is going to ask the hard questions. Because when they have agreed to go together, it means that they have already, they had a discussion. They didn't just wake up and decide that now, tomorrow, or this particular day, we are going to negotiate for the three 26 billion. 368 billion. I mean, that is not small money. And my question is, as much as, it is not everything that is good you go grabbing in life.
All right.
Something may be good, something may be very important, but I'm thinking, what is the priority right now? What is our priority? The SGR issue is good, but my question is, when is it the right time now, when Kenyans are already burdened by other burdens, the taxes and the cost of doing business? Like me, I'm a business person, and I can tell you the cost of doing business in Kenya is really, really hard. It is really hard. And that is why even small, medium, the SMEs, they are closing down. The reason why? Because the cost of doing business has become very difficult, very hard in Kenya.
And as you talk about the cost of business, let's talk about the impact it will have on the lakeside city, that is Kisumu. And there is someone who had said, actually the Right Honorable Raila Odinga said this, and I quote, "We are going to establish a special economic zone in Kisumu and make the city the hub of East Africa."
Rams, spares all those shenanigans and all those issues. I mean, there are some underlying issues that we have to go through.
The economy is
just wait, Ram. I mean, all these other now flowery things and mandarins and I mean, what we're saying is, we do not disagree that we need the SGR. Can we have an audit of the first phase first?
Exactly.
The first phase is making losses. We have ticket scandals. How? I mean, how can you make a loss and yet every day you are overbooked? Try to get a seat from Mombasa today to Nairobi. You can't get. We are using very high amounts to run the thing than what it's bringing in. Is that good business? We are having the people who are running it. I don't want to be a racist. Some people who are running it, they have been outrightly discriminating others. Can we first of all have that audit? We had questions of land compensation. How far are we? We don't just run to try and expand because we know we need that expansion.
So this, even with regards to the rate at which we need to develop the SGR, we need to make it move from one place to the other, from Naivasha to Kisumu. We should take it. It should be taken slowly. An audit should be done. That's what you're saying.
Several times I buy shoes, just like everybody, and whenever I buy a shoe, I have to look on how I'm going on with it. Is it fitting me? Do I need to give it out? Which polish do I need? Before I decide to buy the next pair of shoe, I have to know the shoe that I've bought. How well am I going with it? And what's its purpose? I don't buy a sports shoe today. It's not fitting. Tomorrow go to the same shop, buy the same size of the sports shoes. Spare us.
So this amount of money, 368 billion shillings, at the end of the day, is still going to be taken.
And we're going to pay it.
And we are going to pay it. But then
Kenyans
are going to pay it.
Taxes.
You see, right now, the nation, the prices of basic commodities have already risen up. 500 ml of milk is now retailing at 55 shillings from 50 shillings. And you see, maize has also increased by 28%. So, Ram, in other terms, the government is strategically working to tax the poor to pay for the loans. And this is what is happening in this country. But then, like I told you, we cannot peg all our structural development on loans, borrowing both from bilateral or multilateral institutions. It's going to have a lot of detrimental facts for this country. If not now, then in the future. But then look here. We will still call back again to questions of accountability. The Auditor General, in his audit report, just mentioned that the first phase of standard gauge railway from Mombasa to Nairobi had issues. One, it did not give us the revenue that we projected. Secondly, like Areba said, it's having a scandal with it. When it's ticketing, some other issues within. Could we have, first of all, direct all our energies to make sure that it becomes efficient for us to know what the problem is? President Yoweri Museveni was in this country, and you could actually see a push, a very sustained and inspired push, to make sure that this SGR, the process is well oiled and well expedited, so that the port in Naivasha, and definitely that it go through Kisumu and make its way through the border. So I think there is, as much as we are looking it from the scope of a national economic development, I think regionally we are pushing ourselves towards economical and sustainability, because then it will be very painful that we do this on behest.
Let's look at the aspect of trade.
Now, that is what
between, let's say, for example, Kenya and China.
Now, you realize again that the President of the Republic of Kenya said that he was worried that the imbalanced trade that we are having between Kenya and China. Remember about the fish in Kisumu? He himself said, if we having fish that is coming here from China to Kisumu, then what would we have done as a country? So, can we don't put ourselves to be masters of, Western countries and the Asians? Because whether we like it or not, Chinese loans come with issues that are behind the scenes. And this is something that we all need to agree. First of all,
They have strings attached.
there are things that are tied to it.
But that is your opinion.
That is my opinion.
You don't yet have any fact to add that. Can you substantiate that kind of?
But then look at the issues comparatively in Zambia. What are we facing in Zambia? The ports have already been auctioned, and everything is not working as projected. So one of the things that I would call for is that when the president and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga go and negotiate for these loans, this time round, could we have our, our line people, the delegation, can we have them take notes? For example, on a lighter note. Yes. Can we have them? Can we have them?
know what you're alluding to.
Yes.
The president's comment there.
Yes. Could we have them? So that it is important for us to have a feedback. This is our travel, a very wonderful travel that we had in China, and this is what we brought up. Raila is good in mobilization. Could we now put it at a point where he give the feedback to the citizens? He could traverse the whole country, tell us from 368 billion. Of course, as part of the delegation and as a person who went also to negotiate for this, now his role as the AU in charge of infrastructure development.
Speaking of,
his wisdom would be very key in making sure that this second phase is done better than the first phase.
Speaking of feedback, we would like to get your feedback from wherever you are. Be part of this conversation, The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya on Twitter, at KBC Television, at Jane Ombui, and at Ram Agugo. We are live at the Panari Hotel in Nairobi. Eyes on Politics is the program, if you're just joining us. And there's the whole issue of I will come back to your comment there, but I'm trying to connect it with yet another thing that hit the headlines across the week. When we talk about the president and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, there is a comment that the president said, and I quote, "We have just been talking about issues affecting our people. If it's infrastructure, what do we need to do? We discuss and we support each other." That's what the president said. And he said, we sit, we discuss, we agree. He also gives me ideas that enhance something and makes it even better. What is wrong with that? The president said that with regards to people talking about him affecting ODM, and he said, "Ata miss ODM ni nini." What are your comments on this?
Before that, you raised really a key issue that I have to highlight.
Yes.
Still, in the old days, when you could send boys to go hunt, you will give them spears and everything. They will go hunt. Whether successful or not, they will come back to the bomber and say, when you sent us to hunt for antelopes, we have managed to capture 2 squirrels and probably a rat. Or rather, you come back and say, you sent us for an antelope, we have managed to get an elephant. Wow. So this is something, the issue of feedback, it's something very key. More times than not, the president travels out, and we have so many things being signed. I mean, if we on this table, we don't know, what about the average Kenyan called Nyanduse in Migori? Betty here, she's very learned and highly well-educated and well-read. She doesn't know what are the contents of that agreement. I mean, leaders, you can do better. I know some of you are watching. You can do better to the Kenyans. You don't go to meetings without notebooks. Even the president expressed frustration that, hey, people are just looking at their times. People go on those delegations to go and shop.
Does it display lack of seriousness from the leaders?
Lack of seriousness.
Lack of development from the now. If you're going forward, the same people are expected to take Kenya to the next level.
If I was the president, I'll probably that time I'll look at my delegation and nobody's writing. I'll put them in the next cargo train, in the next cargo plane back to Nairobi, and I'll tell them once you get to Nairobi, do your resignation letters. Sometimes these Kenyans behave like they don't owe Kenyans a responsibility, and it pains some of us. That is why sometimes I get very angry and very emotional. I mean, whenever even we go with meetings to you, you come with a notebook. But here you are as a minister in another country negotiating on behalf of Kenya. You don't have a notebook. How good is your memory in that you are capturing all those billions in your mind? Honestly, this is an issue that I get very annoyed about. It's very impossible. Leaders, please, you owe us. You can do better. You travel on our taxes. You shop on our taxes. What's wrong with you? I mean, this is an issue that I get very annoyed about.
You want to comment on that? Yes.
For me, this is what I want to say.
And then you'll head over into the issue of the leaders complaining about the relationship between the president and the former prime minister.
Okay. Now, first, let me say this, that all the leaders that are watching us this morning, my heart goes out to that common mwananchi who is also your sister, your brother, your mother, and who else that is in this country. I think it would really mean a lot for us when we have leaders who are responsible and leaders who are willing to go an extra mile for the common person. Because as my colleagues have said, it is actually, these leaders, they travel we finance them in everything that they do, because without our paying our taxes, they couldn't do what they do. And we have no problem with that. The problem is that they will do everything else unless being accountable to the Kenyans. And I think the issue of accountability in this country is really something that really needs to be well discussed, and deliberations done and conclusions to those to that debate, because we have been talking, I think, on every time that you have called us on this platform, we have always had issues of accountability rising up, whatever it is that we are discussing, issues of accountability. And I think it is the high time that this country, our leaders get on it and become accountable to Kenyans.
You doubt about the accountability? Even
definitely. I mean, it's common sense. It's all over. I mean, the issue is this. Like, for example, because if we are still having corruption, the scandals, in most of the institutions, which we have discussed on this platform for a very long time. I mean, what is that? That is about accountability. That if you're a leader and you've been given a certain responsibility, if you can't execute it as you ought to, and be the overseer as a leader of what you are supposed to oversee. We have had cases where leaders of particular institutions saying, you know what, I am not the accounting officer. Then I'm thinking, as a leadership expert, I can't understand what do you mean by that. I mean, if you're the leader, if you're the CS of that particular place, or you are the CEO of a particular institution, you can now not say you're not the accounting officer. Who is it if it is not you? The fact is that is your responsibility. And that's why I'm saying our leaders have got, not all, but quite a number of them have a way of escaping responsibility. And I want to comment on what you have said, asked about the relationship and what people are talking about between the relationship between our president and Honorable Raila Odinga. I think on a very personal level, I don't think there is anything wrong with that. I mean, people choose who they want to work with. Those are personal choices that each of them made, and I don't think there is anything wrong. The only thing that I can fault is when Honorable Raila Odinga will stop questioning what he needs to question, because I know he's articulate. He was very articulated when he was before the handshake, and now my request is
he still articulate?
I wouldn't. Time will tell. Let me say that. Time will tell. But I want to encourage him that the questions that he used to ask on behalf of Kenyans, that he should continue doing that. And even though there is handshake, I don't think the handshake, disabled him from playing his role as an opposition leader. Because as far as I'm concerned, I have not heard him saying that he's no longer in opposition. Until such a statement is heard from him, I want to believe that he still has a responsibility to ask the hard questions. And for me, I don't look opposition as an enemy. Usually in every democracy, it's not like being in opposition is being an enemy to the government, to the government of the day. It's just that even in your life, Ram, even as someone like me is married, we keep check on each other with my husband. I mean, there is nothing wrong when someone else is putting in check, because ordinarily as human beings, we have the capacity to derail and to deviate from the right things. So we need someone to keep us checked.
Even in marriage, you will always have the opposition party.
Yes, and it is for the good of the yes, and it is for the good of the marriage and the family as a whole.
You talk about accountability there, and the president had said that they help each other in getting new ideas. You know, that is accountability, in a way.
Just to notice that opposition, an opposition leader, it's not something that you can elect to resign from. As Daniel put it, is that this is a position that you are there by virtue of a preceding act. So unless that preceding act is dispensed with, which then is dispensed after 5 years, or unless you do another act which includes but not limited to probably getting now appointment directly in government as a CS or something else, then you cannot say that now Raila has left the opposition. I mean, you cannot leave the opposition. It's like when you're having a driver's seat, and then you say now the driver's seat has moved to the back. Unless there is some kind of mechanical engineering that takes place, then such act cannot take place.
But you know, because of the handshake, most people claim that
no.
The handshake means now the government has joined with the ODM.
We were used to this Raila Odinga, who's very firebrand, and this one man that whenever you don't have breakfast, Raila, please do this. And whenever Raila spoke, he had his facts right. Whenever he unearthed some of these issues, after some time, it will come out and be like, it is.
But now the handshake has changed everything.
We had too much expectations of the man. Let the man rest.
Let the man rest. Well, and you know, talking of resting there, it also puts to question, does now resting, in your own words, let the man rest, does it mean that Sasa, he has tried his best, now let him just let everything just take its way, have its way?
In other terms, probably trying, not insinuating what he's trying to mean, but I think he's given so much, he's tried so much to occupy the position to serve Kenyans, but in one way or the other, he's not been. So I think the word resting is that Kenyans would give this guy a break and let him also serve Kenyans in other platforms.
Oh, so he has done his best and now let everything just
and I think
go.
For him it's not a done deal, because in his capacity he's still serving Kenyans, and hence the recognition by the government to make him also advise on how
serving Kenyans in which level, in what capacity?
I think he's been invited as a part of the delegation that is sending the president, and secondly that he is now regionally being recognized at AU level. That is a service to the region, that is a service to Kenyans. Now, the other thing that I also wanted to say, we've equated the opposition politics in this country to mean either demonstrations, either boycotts, or either active street activities. Now, so because the history...
That is what has been equated with the opposition. That's what the opposition should do.
Ever since 1992, trying to usher in the era of multi-party, you've actually seen the activities of the opposition always to be in that nature.
All right.
Including the Machozi Mondays, and you see all these things, tear gas Mondays, and Kenyans in their form have recognized, okay, this is what it takes for us to be heard in the position. So when you find that that is now a missing link, Kenyans are asking, even if the likes of Musalia Mudavadi comes out to question, you know, what is happening in the government, Moses Wetangula, and the so declared the opposition leaders, Kenyans are actually feeling, no, these guys are not really being the opposition. They are not up to it, because then there is a missing link. We miss the position that was before. And you could even see some Kenyans asking, we miss those Mondays. You know, we would want to see this kind of things. But again...
I remember the songs of NASA and Jubilee that were played during the campaigns.
Now, Ram, also what we are talking about, I think our democracy has given us a very strong parliamentary system. And in the absence of the so-called the opposition leader, somebody would also constantly question and put government on hold.
So
I think right now,
the opposition leader is absent.
There's a sense on the gap that is felt. Right now, what could have happened if by the time, you know, the tyranny of numbers in the parliament, how I wish that the minority in the parliament could be actually very strong to begin to question the government activities. You see, the parliamentary committees, even committees right now in investment, if there is in public accounts would actually even call upon those who've headed to this delegation to call them for a sitting and in camera to tell people exactly what is in the details of the borrowing, what is the details of this delegation, the
Now,
loan. That
there is a tweet that is here at Martin Njite. All right, keep the tweets coming in. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. We will be sampling them up as we continue. So, Martin Njite is saying we should send both Uhuru and Raila home. You ask, even there's a Twitter here about Brian who is asking why. Should they be sent home?
So that we vote.
I think that is just outrageous. You know, you can't just come from the blue and say they should be sent home. I think you should at least have explained a bit why they should go home. Because I don't think summarizingly saying that they should go home is going to solve any problem. Maybe...
Without no reason.
Well, I don't want to say that he says without no reason, but there's a process to that.
All right.
I think there's a process that all of us as Kenyans, we should understand that presidents are not sent home just like that.
All right. There's a tweet here at Yvonne saying, I think we should give Raila a break. We did not give him the opportunity to lead us. We elected Uhuru and Ruto. Most people called him names. He can do what he wants. All right. Keep the tweets coming in. Very different tweets and very, I think it's quite a concern for Kenyans. In your sense, you are a lawyer. You know, you've studied the laws of the country. You know how things work. What, and I can ask, who is the current opposition? You've talked about having a sense of having an absentee opposition. You talked about that. Then who and what is the opposition as of now within the country?
First of all, I think fundamental is to try and then understand what's this role of the opposition. And then secondly, you look at the roles being played by the opposition. Are there any other bodies recognized in law that can perform the same position? First of all, we start from what an election is. The reason why we have periodic elections is because when I come to sell my manifesto to the people, I give them a vision. And if they accept the vision, they give me the mandate to implement that. Once I start implementing, if I do as they wish, during the periodic time, they can renew my term. When that time ends and they feel that this person has not done as I wanted, they send me home. They bring somebody else with that vision to try and carry it out. Then, yes, periodic elections. Remember what I said, periodic elections. Then number two, the issue of opposition. Opposition is not a role of just making noise or just doing what you want to. The idea of the opposition is that the person who becomes the runners-up to becomes the opposition leader. And becoming the opposition leader, he is expected to put the government in check. In that every day he needs to put the government on its heels, so that whatever the government is doing, he has that responsibility to question, not only to question, but to ensure that it's done right. Having said that, we have other agencies which are embedded in law, which are supposed to also ensure that whatever is done by the government of the day is done in the correct procedures. We have parliamentary committees. We have other statutory bodies. We have other constitutional bodies like the police and such. Now, when we just want to give a very huge responsibility to the opposition itself and do not ask what are the parliamentary committees doing, I think we are losing it.
There is someone who has said this, and I would like to quote this from a senator, the senator for Trans Nzoia, Michael. He said, "Na hiyo handshake naanza kuona shetani anaingia ndani."
I think Ram, here we are talking about serious things. So if you are to comment on something, let it be serious. Let's leave about politicians and their shenanigans. We are talking, that is a shenanigan. We are talking about responsibility to the people. We are not talking about 2022 here. What we are talking about is how can, wait. How can we get value for the people? What I was talking about is that we have parliamentary committees, in that if you feel that the opposition leader is not doing enough, ask your member of parliament, what have you done in parliament to ensure that whatever we borrowed is being utilized well? So let's talk about serious things.
Let's talk about serious things. I will come to you, Daniel, and
How does Areva dismiss a whole senator? Like, someone is not serious. Elected by the people. A senator. Every time I get people asking directly questions to me, but it's okay. First of all, Areba is correct but correct. Correct but correct on a number of issues. One, he says that we are actually looking at was serious issues on what we would actually deliver to the citizens of Kenya, not 2022. But then that is subjective to what's happening. Because right now, again, I keep on insisting, very, very insisting. There was a reason for the handshake. And let me now address the concern by the senator. There is an issue about the election, 2022. But then handshake had got 9-point agenda. Let us always remember about the agenda. One of the agenda that we talked about is matters of cohesion, matters of dealing with corruption. But then you see, there is other political ends that try to think that the point of the handshake was trying to neutralize an agenda for 2022, which is also politically correct in some quarters. But let's also address it. Anytime I hear somebody talking about the handshake, I always remind that before you comment to it negatively about hindrance in 2022, could you look for it what is in line with this handshake? Fight against corruption, national values, national inclusion, you understand? And trying to have a politics that is not competitive and combative, and that is not of conflict in nature. So before we always water down the good ends of the two leaders, two gentlemen, meeting and trying to unite the country, could we also look at what is coming positively from the initiative that the two of them are actually rolled out? Now, I didn't understand exactly what it meant that I woke up twice to vote. But in any way, like Betty said, you know, let us also recognize that, you see, the incoming, Raila Odinga could not be dismissed because he had over 1 million voters behind him. You understand? And this critical mass requires service as well. And the only way this critical mass would feel that they are represented is that their matters and the person they hoped for could be included in the government to provide for an alternative. And I like what the president said, that even as he's coming in, he's given me the ideas to implement. And whenever I try to implement them, it does turn out to be good. He said that. So if the head of state, in his wisdom, have realized that truly it is important that we include and bring in the opposition leader, it's who are we, like other Kenyans, think about otherwise? I think it's important to give them time.
Yeah. Let me have your mic, please. Even as we talk about this, we are having tweets here, and I would like us to just sample them, even as we try to wrap things up. At Ogweri says, it is very early for us to talk about 2022. Every time I get angry when I hear somebody talking about 2022 elections. And the person saying, watching the show and loving the discussion, very eloquent and sober panelists. Keep it up. All right. You have compliments there. Someone else is at Mihadi is saying, watching the show from Nairobi, you look good from the Panari Hotel. All right. And there is another at Vincent Tendwa saying, phase 1A, Mombasa to Nairobi, 472 kilometers, cost 327 billion. Corruption notwithstanding. Phase 2B, Naivasha to Kisumu, 262 kilometers, to cost 368 billion. We are mad. All right? And that is with regards to how long the distance is. From Mombasa to Nairobi is 472 kilometers, 327. From Naivasha to Kisumu, 262 kilometers at 368 billion shillings. All right, keep the tweets coming in. We shall continue to sample them up even as we continue with this morning broadcast. Maybe you can have a final word concerning this. And I would like to start with you, Betty, concerning the state of the nation, even as we talk about the politics going around between, Ruto, the president, even the person that is the Court Secretary General, Francis Atwoli, Just as we wrap things up, what is your comment concerning the state of the nation?
I think the state of this country is not really good, and that is a very personal opinion. I still believe that our leaders have got a lot of ground to cover, and this includes the accountability, especially for people in leadership positions. We need to see more accountability. In relations to 2022 politics, I think we are experiencing national fatigue over this, and especially the Kenyans. I think we want our leaders right now to focus more on the development of this country. And they focus more on helping the Kenyans on the issues they are struggling with. And even, like, for example, making the business environment more conducive for business people so that we can have real economic growth that counts for everyone. In regards to Honorable Raila Odinga and the handshake issues all around, I think by and large, this was a very good initiative. All what I am saying is that I want to encourage Honorable Raila that if something needs to be questioned, he should not shy off from questioning. And because when you have a good friend, as I can see they are good friends now with the president, I think a friend asked a question in the right way for the right reason, there is nothing wrong with that. And I think this is what I would want to see. But for me, the handshake has done more good than evil in this country. Yeah.
As of now, I think there is a lot of national fatigue when it comes to talking about matters 2022. Whether you are on kutoeleweka, kutotangatanga, or handshake, these are issues that we need to shelve for now. We just came in from one of the most expensive election process in the world. Our elections in Kenya are one of the most expensive. It takes around 700 shillings for every ballot cast, while in the UK it costs around 1 shilling. And we need to see Kenyans getting the value of the leaders they elected or the leaders who are in different positions. We cannot just come out of an election and on the victory speech what you're saying is, hey, thank you for voting me. Remember on 2022 I'll be vying for this. We need to move away from that. And I really get very mad and very disappointed when the very, very people we have given responsibilities to, they don't care. So it's high time that as Kenyans, I think, we critically think whenever we get to the ballot. The issues of mediocre, the issues of corruption, they all can be won at the ballot. When it comes to the handshake, everybody handshake with everybody. I mean, we are all brothers and sisters. Shake everybody's hand out there. We don't need to read other motives. Let's come together, work for the Kenyans.
Well, I think in my brief and closing remarks, we are at a stage where the country is both, trying to struggle with, internal political stability and trying to impress the region and, the nations at large. So Kenyans, what we are struggling with is just getting it right. The fact that we have to have our governance structures in place, well and working, our accountability also in place, well and working, and try to build a sense of nationhood that would take us great as a country. But then, like I keep on saying, and I said even before the State of the National Address, and the President actually affirmed what I said, the state of our nation is very strong, except by the fact that we are having pockets of challenges up and down to fix, political challenges, corruption, run with corruption and all these kinds of things. I think when we are going to get it right as a country, everything is going to be sorted out. So for me, going forward is, could we deliver a platform of a country that competes, a country that finds its international interest, strategic interest well placed, so that we get it right here in regionally and of course in the whole world. Like we said again, we are condoling with our friends in Sri Lanka, and I think this is, as a Christians, let's take time to say that terror has no friend, terror has no religion, and in any way it is, we condemn every attack, that nobody should be victimized because of their faith.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's all about eyes on politics. Be part of this conversation. The hashtag Good Morning Kenya at KBC Television, at Jane Ombui, and at Ram Maguko. It's all about the state of the nation on eyes on politics. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your comments. Remember, something to think about. The police is looking for suspects who stole over 10 million shillings. Take note. 10 million shillings from 3 ATMs belonging to Barclays Bank of Kenya this weekend. That is the state of the nation. Meanwhile, it's all about Easter with Panari, right here on Good Morning Kenya. KBC has partnered with the Panari Hotel to bring you the best Easter experience yet. All you had to do was to tweet the hashtag Easter with Panari, and we today, this morning, right here on this show, will be able to award winners who were able to send in their tweets and their comments. The rewards include: 1, a fully paid weekend getaway at the Panari Resort all the way in Nyahururu, and 2, dinner vouchers right here at the Panari Hotel, where we are located along Mombasa Road, where you can be able to get dinner vouchers within the comfort of your desire. So that is all about Easter with Panari right here on Good Morning Kenya. We are taking a short break. Do not go too far. It's all about Easter with Panari.